BC, how are ya? It's been a bit. I am back to share some records with you. It's winter here in New England, and it's been kind of a weird winter. The weather's been very up and down. Like today, it's like in the 50s. And then we just got over the polar vortex of crazy cold weather. Yet, I'm noticing that a lot of these records are black and white. Stack. First thing I would like to share with you is this one, Curren. So he was a New Englander who moved to Italy to pursue music. This is kind of a cool record. It's a mix of Avant Garde music and field recordings, so nature sounds. It's incredibly beautiful, a wonderful late night listen, and I treated myself to this wonderful OG copy at the last record fair that I did in Northampton. I know it was reissued recently, and I'm sure the reissue is equally as wonderful to listen to, but sometimes we gotta treat ourselves. Don Heckman and Ed Summerlin, these guys have recorded at least one other thing called liturgical jazz, which I also have, which is not anything like this. This is, it's improvisational, but it has sort of kind of post-bop roots a little bit, or maybe bop roots. It's traditional instrumentation, but then it starts to sort of come apart. I don't know if that's a good way to describe it. There's also some really keen wordless female vocals that really escalate this one. The recording is a little bit, it's a private press, so it's a little bit, it's an ictus. What was I trying, it's a little bit murky, and there's lots of room sound, but it's still a really great listen. And I love the cover. It's kind of like a woodcut. So this next one, Robert Seeley. He was a teacher and an electronic musician. He had a studio and a house west of the city, Boston, and recorded a couple of records on his own label, and also was on a comp or two on CRI Records. This guy is so cool. He passed away not too long ago, maybe like within the past 5 years. And at some point I reached out to his wife, I guess you call it a widow. I reached out to her to see if there were any records, and there were. But she was selling them one at a time, and I was trying to do that thing where you buy a bunch of them. But some folks recently picked up all the dead stock records, and they've sort of disseminated out around the Boston area. So you can pick them up. I highly recommend this one. There's another one with a red cover, which is, I'm forgetting the other instrument that it's with. Anyway, this guy is really cool. And there's a little connection here. So this one, The Essence by George Russell. George went to Robert Seeley's studio to record all the Moog bits for this. So, Electronic Sonata for Souls Loved by Nature, parts 1, 2, and 3 have Moog, played by Mr. Russell, recorded at Robert Seeley's studio. This is also a fantastic double record. I think that there's 4 sidelong pieces. Anyway, this is killer. And I picked up a grail. I don't often say that word, but in this case, it's an absolute grail. And I talked to Curren about this one, I think. The London Experimental Jazz Quartet. Invisible Roots. The jacket art is obviously stunning. And it's not London, UK, it's London, Ontario. It's not much to look at, scratch records. This is a jazz record, but it's very avant-garde, and there's almost like a bit of whimsy. There's cello and flute. Back's kind of cool. It's just so well, there's like electronic stuff, there's lots of processing. And one of the tracks ended up on one of the soul jazz comps called, where is it? Destroy the Nihilist Picnic ended up on one of those soul jazz comps. This is so amazing. And the most I've ever paid for a record ever. Y'all can look it up. You can also listen to the entire thing online. It's also available on all your downloadable services. This is just so good. And it was a long time want. A very long time want. Look at the jacket art. So good. And I guess the last thing that I wanted to share was I really got into this guy named Todd Dockstader. He lived locally here at the latter part of his life, in I think Arlington. He was suffering from dementia, which is a terrible thing. But he was this interesting guy. He was self-taught as far as being a musician and also an engineer. He, sorry, I should share some of these with you. This was his first one that he released independently on his own label, and then this was on Folkways. He worked in New York City as a sound effects engineer, and at night, in a very punk rock way, he would stay in the studios and record his own music. And again, he wasn't trained as a musician, but he made these crazy electronic records, pre-sequencer and all that stuff. They're just, I mean, all the art is incredible. And I'm just fascinated with I don't know why I'm so fascinated with it. It's on Owl, which is a really cool label. And I mean, they're all just, you can't go wrong with any of these records. They tend to be longer pieces. Very cool label. Yeah, I don't know why I'm stuck on this guy at the moment, but they're very electronic. They're very avant-garde. They sort of remind me of Perry and Kingsley a little bit, except for those guys tended to be not novelty, but they were happier, shorter pieces. These are longer and not darker, they're heavier. Just heavier pieces. This guy was totally onto something. I just love the fact that he was in the studio, you know, sort of on the sly at night, ripping these records. I mean, it really doesn't get much better than that. So anyway, there you go. Not a super long video. Just wanted to check in, say hi, share a couple of crazy things with you. I'm mostly doing stuff on Instagram these days, so you should check that out. It's Record Bug. You can find me. Yeah, been selling a lot of classical records on eBay recently as well. So if you're into that sort of thing, you should check that out. And I guess that's it. Hope you're all well. Leave some comments. We'll have a little back and forth. And maybe I'll try to do this again soon. Peace, guys. See you on the flip side.